Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? Welcome to my YouTube channel. So this video is supposed to upload on FreeCodeCamp channel, but due to some reason they didn't allow me to upload this video on their channel. So I decided to upload this video on my YouTube channel. So let's see what we are going to learn in this video. So in this video we are going to explore RTK query, which is very powerful data fetching and caching tool built on top of the Redux-Toolkit package. We will understand theory part related to RTK query later in this video, but for now let's see what we are going to build in this video. So we will be building a food recipe application with the help of RTK query using React. We are going to use here admin third-party API to list out different recipe on our front-end app. So in this application you can search different recipe. So let's try to search recipe with bread. So let's click on search. So you can see that we are getting recipe related to bread, and if you are a little bit health conscious, then you can select here low sugar. So again it's going to filter our result based on this health category, and if you click on any recipe card, then a model will pop up in which I have included some more detail about this particular recipe. So this is the overall application that we are going to build in this video with the help of RTK query in React. Before we start working on our food recipe app, let's try to understand first what is RTK query and its API. So RTK query is a powerful data fetching and a caching tool. So it is mainly used for fetching the data from server, and it's cache the data for future use. And here it is also mentioned that it is designed to simplify common cases for loading data in web application, eliminating the needs to hand write data fetching and caching logic yourself. So here we don't have to write logic manually for loading, fetching or error part whenever we have to make a API request. So generally what happen, RTK query will take care all of this task behind the scene. So overall RTK query provide a powerful tool set to define an API interface layer for our application. And you don't have to install an additional package to work with the RTK query, because RTK query is built on the top of the other API in the Redux-Toolkit package. So you don't have to install RTK query additionally in your application. Now let's see what API include inside this RTK query. So first we have a create API. So create API is the core of the RTK query functionality. It allows you to define a set of endpoints, describe how to retrieve a data from a series of endpoints, including configuration of how to fetch and transform that data. And in most cases we should use this once per app. So overall in create API we define a different endpoint you can call series of endpoint. So this is all about the create API. Now let's talk about the fetch based query. So fetch based query is a small wrapper around fetch to simplify request. So inside this fetch based query we define base URL for our API. Now let's talk about the API provider. So API provider can be used as a provider if you don't have a Redux store. So if you don't have a store in your application, so you can use this API provider. So in this course we are not going to follow this approach. So we will be basically follow the traditional approach. So basically we bring the provider from React Redux library, and we wrap our app component with the provider, and we pass our store to the app component. So this API provider approach we are not going to use in this course. Now let's talk about the last one, that is setup listener. So it is a utility used to enable refetch on amount and refetch on reconnect behavior. So overall with Redux and Redux Toolkit we have to manage this piece of each state manually, like setting is loading to true, then make false once we get data from API. Same thing goes for other state as well, like if we want to get data from backend, then we have to set it manually. And same thing goes for error part as well. If you are having any issue with API, then you have to set error state manually. So all this manually stuff we don't have to do when we are working with RTK query, because every piece of state is going to generate automatically by RTK query. And this way also we have to write very less code. So they have removed the concept of create slice, which is used to manage state manually in Redux-Toolkit. So before we do project setup, let's configure our food recipe API in admin website. So make sure to create account, and once you create account, you will land on this page. And in this we will be using free one. And with free, we will be able to make only 10 requests per minute, which is enough to build this food recipe application. So under document, we will get our recipe search API. So here we are using older version. So let's scroll down and we need this API. So let's copy this API and save it somewhere in Notepad. Now we need app ID and app key. So we need to click on get API key. After that, you have to click on this view under recipe search API. So this is our app ID and app key. So let's store this information as well in Notepad. Now we will start working on our project setup. So to work on our recipe application, we are going to use a Redux TypeScript template. So let's copy this command and I'm going to paste in my terminal, and I'm just going to change my app name here. So it will be RTK recipe. Okay, and let's hit enter. So it will take around 2 to 3 minutes to set up our React project with Redux TypeScript template. So let's wait for the project setup. So our project setup got completed over here. So first let's go into this directory, that is RTK recipe. And before we do npm start, we need to install one package for our project. So in this project we are going to use Material Design Bootstrap 5. So let's copy this one and let's open this terminal. I'm going to paste it here and let's hit enter. So it will install the package. So our package got installed. So let's do npm start. And I have already opened this project in my Visual Studio Code. So let's go to the VS Code. So you can see that the project is open in my VS Code, and we have some boilerplate code over here because we have created this project using Redux TypeScript template. So let's go to this package.json file. As you can see that creating project with Redux TypeScript template, we don't need to install Redux-Toolkit package, as well as we also don't need to install React Redux. So we don't need to install these two packages using Redux TypeScript. So guys, now let's go to the browser first because our development server is running. So we don't have any issue. So let's see in the browser. So we have got this content, and this content basically is displaying from our app.tsx file. So we have this content which is displaying on our browser. And let's explore this two folder as well. So we have got feature and app folder. Inside this we have store. So we have got some basic configuration about store. We have hooks here, and we have one feature folder in which we have counter folder. So this counter folder is not required. So let's remove this entire folder first. So the counter folder was not required. So now let's go to the browser. So now our application got break over here. So we need to do some cleanup over here. So let's go to the store.tss file. So we don't need this one. Let's remove this one. Let's remove this one. And let's save this file first. Let's go to the app.tsx file, and I'm going to remove our entire content. We can give here like food recipe heading for now. Let's remove this one because we have deleted that entire folder. Logo is also not required. We can also remove this React import statement. Let's save this file and let's go to the browser. So now we don't have any issue in our application. Since we are using Material Design Bootstrap in this project, so we need to bring the CSS file for the Material Design Bootstrap. So what we can do for that? So we can copy this import statement and we can paste it over here. Okay. So we can see the changes in our browser. So let's go into the browser. Now you can see that we have got some different heading. So that means we have successfully configured Material Design Bootstrap in this project. So now next thing we are going to do a folder structure. So we are going to have some folder and files in this application. So we are going to have one folder, components, in which we are going to have some files like modal.tsx, spinner.tsx, and we are going to have one cart component. So I'm just going to generate a snippet in each component. Otherwise we will get some error in browser because we are using TypeScript in this project. So let's generate a snippet for this component as well. After that, let's delete this one features folder. Instead, we are going to have services folder because we are going to create a endpoint, and inside that we are going to have recipe api.ts. So let's configure RTK query in this project first. So here we need to bring some API from our Redux-Toolkit. So from Redux-Toolkit we need to go to the query React, okay, and we have to bring create API and fetch base query. Now I'm going to paste my API key and app ID that we have got from admin. So this is the API key and app ID that we have generated on our admin. Now we have to create an endpoint here. So export const recipe API, create API. We have to define reducer path because we have to connect this recipe API to our store. So we have to define a reducer path over here. After that we have to define the base query of our admin API. So we gonna use here fetch base query and we have to provide the base URL. So the base URL will be like https api.admin.com. After that we are going to have endpoint and we are going to write some builder pattern. And here we are going to have get recipes builder dot mutation. If you are a little bit aware of RTK query, so this builder dot mutation we normally use for making post, put or delete request, but since here we have to get the recipe based on our search query and health, so we have to write here mutation because we need to receive search query and health from our component. So here we have to write mutation. So inside this we are going to have query and we are going to receive query, that is search query and health. And then we can return. So here we have to specify the URL. So I'm just going to copy this one. So this is our base URL which we have already specified in fetch base query. Okay, let's paste it over here. And we are going to receive this query from our component. So we can use here query. Okay, and health we are also going to receive from our component only. So let's replace this one. So let's format this one, and this get recipe is going to expose a new hook. So what we can do over here, so export const recipe API, and this get recipe is going to expose a new hook. So we can write over here. So let's save this file, and we have to do some small work in our store.tss file. So here let's remove this one, we don't need. We need to import setup listener from our Redux-Toolkit. So from Redux-Toolkit we need to go to dist folder and query, and we have to bring setup listener. And now we are going to bring our recipe API from our service folder. So let's go to the services, and we have to bring a recipe API. Now we have to connect our reducer with this recipe API. So recipe API dot reducer path recipe API dot reducer. After that we have to also use middleware here. So we are going to use default middleware. So get default middleware, get default middleware, and we have to concat recipe API to our middleware. Let's format this one first, and here we can remove this one. Okay, and we can have setup listener store dot dispatch. Okay, let's save this file. So we have configured store in this project. So let's open terminal whether we have any issue or not. So we don't have any issue as of now. So let's go to the browser. So here also we don't have any issue. So let's verify whether RTK query is successfully configured or not. So I'm going to open Redux DevTool, and you can see that we are getting something in our Redux DevTool. So that means we have successfully configured RTK query in this React application. So now we can start working on our food recipe application. So first I'm going to display the recipe in a card component. So I'm going to start working on this app.tsx file. So here we need to bring some hooks from our React. So from React, let's bring use effect and use state, and we have to also bring the query that we have written under services folder. So we need to go to this services, and we need to bring that query. So use get recipe mutation. After that we need to bring some component. from our material design bootstrap. So from MDB React UI kit, we need MDB row, MDB input, MDB btn, MDB navbar, MDB container, MDB navbar brand. Okay. After that, we are going to define some piece of state. Okay, so we are going to have a state for value. So basically we are defining a state our search input field over here, and after that we have to put this value into a different state, that is query use state, and this will be empty, this will also empty. Now we have to define the health. So it is basically health category, so it will be set health, and by default we are going to basically display a vegan. Okay, and we are going to have a state for our model as well. So let's define and we are also going to have a state to display a single recipe in a model. So we are going to use object. So basically we are going to store that single recipe into a object. So let's define here empty object. Now let's remove this one. For now we don't need, and here I am just going to give some inline style, and let's give here margin auto, let's give padding 15 pixel. I am going to give here max width 1000 pixel, and align content, it will be center. Now inside this div we are going to have MDB navbar, and this will be light, and background color we can give light also. Then we are going to have MDB container, and that will be fluid. Then we are going to have MDB navbar brand. We can give here class name text center. So this is a bootstrap class name I am giving over here. After that we can have h5 tag with the class name fw-bold mt-2, and I am going to use here emoji. So I am going to use here burger, hamburger. After that food recipe app. So this is our title for this application. Let's save this one and let's see in the browser how it's look like. So now we have got our nice navbar over here. Let's continue work on other part. So after this navbar we are going to have div with the class name row g-1 align items center mt-2, and inside this div I am going to have input field. Okay, and here let's give wrapper class that will be column auto. Label, let's give search recipe. Let's give type text. After that we're gonna have value which we already defined. Then we're gonna have on change method. So let's define that one as well. So this is gonna receive event. So e dot target dot value. After this input field, we are going to have one more div with the class name call auto, and we are going to have one button. So mdb btn search. Okay, and we will define on click method later. So now we have to basically list out different recipe in a cart component. So first we are going to use this query to get all the recipes. So let's use that query. So const use get recipe mutation, and we have to pass this query and health. So we have to bring this get recipe as well. So here first we are going to bring that get recipes. After that we are going to destructure different piece of state that is get generated by our RTK query. So you can see that we have a different state like is error, is loading, is success. So all this different state is going to generated by RTK query. So that's the reason it's called powerful data fetching tool. So we need only is loading and data. So inside this data it will contain our all recipe. After this what we have to do, so we have to define one use effect, and this use effect will run whenever we are searching recipe or we are changing the health category. So in both cases we have to run this query. Okay, so I'm going to define one method here. So get food recipe. So let's define this method below this use effect. So const get food recipe, and this will be async because we are going to perform asynchronous operation. So you can see that in get recipe we are making the API request. Okay, and here we have to also define one more thing, that is method. So here you have to specify get. Okay, so let's specify method as well. After this we can just do like await get recipes, and we have to pass query and health in the form of object because we are receiving here in the form of object only. So you have to pass this way. Okay, after that what we have to do, so we can verify this one whether it's working or not. So let's go into the browser and let's open the Redux dev tool. So you can see that our promise got fulfilled over here, and here we got some recipe. So you can see that inside data we have our all recipe. So inside data you have to go to hits, and inside hits you will have different recipe. So we have to target this way. So let's go to the VS Code. So here you can see that we have already destructured data. So we have to just target like this way, data dot hits, and inside hits we have our different recipe. So now in order to display the recipe we have to first work on our cart component. So let's start working on this cart component. Then we will able to display our recipe. So from MDB React UI kit, we need to bring some component. So from material design bootstrap, we need to bring MDB column, MDB group, not BTN group, MDB card group, MDB card, MDB card image, and MDB card body. Okay. After this, we have to do some adjustment to this functional component because we are using TypeScript. So we have to write this way: React dot functional component, and here we have to specify props function. Okay, we will define this one outside this component, and it's going to receive a prop recipe. So whenever we pass a prop to a functional component in a TypeScript, so we have to write our functional component this way, and outside this functional component we have to define our interface, otherwise we will get error. So let's define this props function, and we are going to receive a recipe, so it could be any. Okay, after this what we have to do, so we can remove this one, and here it will be MDB column, MDB card body, then I'm going to use MDB card, and here I'm going to use bootstrap class name, so it will be h-100 mt-2 d-sm flex. Okay, then we are going to have MDB card image. Inside source I'm going to specify the recipe image, so recipe dot image. In alternate we can specify label, so recipe dot label. Position will be top. Style, let's give here cursor, pointer. Okay, we're gonna have on click method, so we will define this one later. So for now let's remove this one, and after this we're gonna have MDB card body, and here I'm going to use h5 tag with the class name fw-bold, and here we are going to have the recipe dot label. Okay, so let's format this one, and here it will be MDB card group, not card body, so let's use here MDB card group. Let's save this file. So you can see that in dev tool we have label image, so we are using this property inside our cart component. So let's minimize this one, and I'm going to use this cart component inside our app.tsx file. So after this div we are going to have MDB row. Okay, and I'm going to use here class name row calls -1 row calls -md-3 g-4, and we have to target hits, as you can see that in Redux dev tool. So inside our hits we have our different recipe, so we have to target like this way: data dot hits, and I'm using here ternary expression. So why I'm using this one, because if you don't use this, so you have to write like this way: data dot hits then you will able to use data.hits.map. Okay, so that's the reason I am using this ternary expression. So data.hits.map and item any, because we are using here TypeScript, so we have to specify this one. And let's use here card component that we have created. So VS Code automatically import the card component for me, and here we have to specify recipe props. So item dot recipe we have to give like this way. Let's save this file and let's verify this one whether it's working or not. So let's go into the browser. So now you can see that we are able to render different recipe in our card component. Okay, now after that what we have to do, so we have to implement first search functionality. So we have created the button, search button, but we haven't write any logic to perform the search functionality. So here we are going to have one on-click method, handle search. Let's define this one outside return const handle search. Okay, so here we can do set query, we can pass the value, and after clicking on search button we wanted to clear search input field, so we can do like set value to empty. Now we can perform search functionality in our application. So let's go into the browser and I'm going to search a recipe with the bread. So let's type here bread and let's click on search. So now you can see that we are able to fetch recipe based on the bread. Okay, so search functionality is also implemented in this application. Now let's go back to VS Code and I'm going to use this is loading state as well. So I'm going to work on our spinner component. So here what we have to do, so here we have to bring one component from our material design bootstrap, that is spinner, that is MDB spinner, and inside we are going to have one div with the class name text center empty-5, and we are going to use here MDB spinner, and here we are going to have span tag with the class name visually hidden. Okay, and here I'm going to give loading with 3 dot, and in MDB spinner we have to pass some prop, that is grow. Class name let's give here empty-2. Let's give some inline style. Width I'm going to give here 3 rem. Height I'm going to give 3 rem. Let's format this one and we can remove this one, we don't need. Let's use this component inside our app.tsx file, and here we are bringing this is loading. So what we can do, so we can check if we have is loading true, then in that case I wanted to show the spinner. Okay, so VS Code automatically import this spinner component for me. Now let's go into the browser, let's refresh this one. So now you can see that we have got a spinner on our application. Now next thing, we are going to implement a drop down here. So we are going to have one health drop down which will contain some option to filter out based on different health category. So let's work on that one. So we are going to have this health category in our drop down. So let's create a drop down over here. So here we are going to have drop down, and we are not going to use a drop down component from material design bootstrap. We are going to use normal HTML, and we will style that one with CSS. Okay. So here first we are going to have one div with the class name call auto. So it will be auto, and inside that I'm going to use select, and we are going to have one class name category drop down, and we are going to have one onChange method, that is handle click. Okay, and we can pass here value health. Inside that we are going to have options, then we are going to map this option that we have defined outside this, that we have defined outside app function. So let's use here option and index, then let's use here option tag. So here I'm going to use option dot label, and let's use here value. So option dot value, or it will be empty. Let's give here key index. Let's save this one, and let's define handle click outside this return const handle click, and this will receive an event, and we can set health like e dot target dot value. Okay, after that we are going to index.css file. So we have to specify the styling for this category drop down. So I'm just going to paste the styling for that class name. So this styling I am going to apply for our drop down. So let's save this one, and let's go into the browser. Now refresh this one. So now you can see that our styling got applied on drop down. So let's select again recipe bread here. So now we are searching recipe related to bread, and here let's select health category. So I am going to select here low sugar. So now this time we will get different result for recipe related to bread. So you can see that we have got different result now based on our health category. So this is also implemented in this React application. So last thing, we have to work on our model component. So whenever you click on any card component, so we are going to display some additional info about that particular recipe. So let's work on that model component. So we need to go back to VS Code, and we have already created a model component over here. You can see that. So in this model component, first we need to bring some component from material design bootstrap. So we need component like mdb model, mdb model dialog, mdb model content, mdb model header. Then we need mdb btn as well, mdb model body, and mdb model footer. Okay, let's format this one. After this, we have to define interface for the props that we are going to receive from our app component. So let's define that one as well. So toggle, so we are going to receive then we are going to receive recipe. So this is a function, that why I have written like this way. This is an object, so you can give here any if you want. Set so any, so it will be boolean. Okay, after this we have to modify this functional component because we are working with the TypeScript, so it will be react.fc, and here we have to pass this props function. Okay, sorry, this props function, and it's going to receive toggle so recipe show and set so. Now inside return we are going to have one fragment, and here we are going to have mdb model. Here we are going to use so once it's true, model will open. Okay, and we have to also define here set so mdb model dialog. Then we are going to have mdb model content. Then we are going to have mdb model header. Then we have h5 tag with the class name fw-bold. So this will be label, the recipe label. After this h5 tag we are going to have mdb btn. Okay, so here I'm going to give class name btn -close, color none, on click we are going to give here toggle so after this header we are going to have mdb model body. Here I'm going to use image tag. Okay, so source, inside source we are going to have recipe.image. Inside alternate we are going to have recipe.label. Then we are going to have div with the class name empty-2. Then we are going to have h5 tag with the class name text start fw-bold text -muted, and let's give one inline style, that is float left. Okay, inside h5 tag we are going to have label like calories. Okay, after that we are going to have again h5 tag with the class name text -start, and here we are going to show the calorie count. So recipe dot calories, and we can give the unit as well here. So for calorie it will be kcal. After this h5 tag we are going to have ingredient, so I'm just going to copy this one, I'm going to paste it over here, and let's remove this style, we don't need this style. For ingredient, so ingredients basically contain in array, so we are going to use map here. So if you look at this dev tool, so this is our fulfilled. Okay, so here inside mutation we have to go to this, let's go to data, let's go to hit, you will find ingredient for a specific recipe inside ingredient line. Okay, so here we have ingredient line which is array, so that's why I'm going to use map over here to display the ingredient for that particular recipe. So we have to target like this way, recipe dot ingredient line dot map item, it could be any, then we are going to use your list with the class name text hyphen start, and here we are going to have our item. Then after body we are going to have one footer, so mdb model footer, and inside footer we are going to have a close button, so mdb btn close, and here the color I'm going to give secondary, and on click we are going to use toggle so we have to define this function in our parent component, that is app.tsx file. So now let's work on the rest of the piece in our app.tsx file. So here what we have to do, so whenever you click on card, so a model will pop up. So outside return we have to define toggle so function. Okay, and inside this I am going to pass recipe. Okay, and toggle, so we can just do opposite, whatever we have the state value of so, and we can set here recipe whatever we are receiving. So basically we are storing object. Okay, and in object, so this recipe object contain different detail about particular recipe like image, label, ingredients. Okay, so we are storing in a object. You can see that we have defined this set recipe as a empty object, so we are storing everything in a object. So this toggle so we can use here. So in card we have to pass this toggle so. Okay, now let's go to this component, and here also we have to define toggle so. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this one because it will be the same, and here we have to pass toggle so, and here on click what we can do, so in on click we can use that toggle so, and we can pass this recipe. Okay, let's save this file and let's go to app.tsx file. Now once this so value got true, then we have to open the model. So after this mdb row we have to basically show that model component. So if so is true, then we have to display a model component. So let's bring that model component that we have created. So VS Code automatically import that component for me, and here we have to pass props like show, set so, because these props we have already defined in our model component. Here it will be recipe, and here we have to pass toggle so as well. Now let's save this one and verify in our browser whether it's working or not. So let's refresh this one. Let's click on any card component. Now you can see that we are able to display some more information about this particular recipe like calorie and ingredient. So this is also done. So everything is working, you can see that. So we have built this food recipe app with the help of RTK Query in React. So I'm going to open a console whether we have any issue or not in this current application. So you can see that we have some kind of warning. So the first warning for now we can ignore, and let's fix this second warning. So I am going into my VS Code, and here we can use key. So key is equal to index. Let's save this file. Let's go to browser, refresh this one. Now we are not seeing that warning related to our cart component, and you can ignore this warning for now. So let's close this one. So we have successfully able to build this food recipe app with the help of RTK query in today's video. I hope you have learned some important concept related to RTK query in this video. So thank you so much guys for watching this video. So I will see you in some other video. Till then, goodbye and take care.